Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me and welcome to Goddess Garden Book Chat. If ever you're looking to join this conversation or if you want to come back to it, you can find it on Spotify. You can also find it on Facebook under Cass Pierce. And I'll be posting this in one of the apartments that I have on my plot in Sankofa Village inside Quest Multiverse Infiniverse. So if you have the headset, stop on by. We have lots of wonderful things awaiting you when you come inside. This is a book club, and I'm hoping that you join this book club excited about the books that we pick and the journeys that we go on. As I have a library and I am going to be leading a lot of this discussion as we start out, these are books that are going to come from things that I've read and love, some things that I'm just embarking on, but there are a lot of great things inside here. As you can see, when you look at my Kindle, it's been on a bit of a journey of its own, but it is my absolute favorite thing in the world. I had physical libraries, I had hardbacks, and I loved them. I had library shelves, shelves and shelves of hardback books. But it's an interesting journey that life takes you on, and sometimes you can't always take your books with you until you get a Kindle or you get some other device that allows you to travel with all of your stuff. Because I'm sure there are more than just this. This just happens to be my favorite thing. I've seen a lot of people using their telephones. So if that's your thing, you get your library on there, get your books. The other thing I want to share with you as a book club member is tonight I'm recording on a Sunday evening. So I'm enjoying a delicious glass of Prosecco, and whatever you're enjoying, whatever time of day or night that you find yourself listening to this podcast, I hope that we can all come together, have a good time, relax, and find some great things to read and talk about. In this particular book club journey, we're going to be covering almost every genre of book that I find entertaining. I want to share with you some of the wonderful things that I have awaiting for you. But let's start out with the fact that I will be talking about everything from thrillers and shifters and romance, alphas and paranormals, aliens, billionaires, and there will be sometimes a couple of books that go from kink and the lifestyle in which a lot of these characters find themselves, because those journeys too can be pretty thrilling depending on what you choose. So today, our particular journey, where I'd like to start, is I had been looking at a list of books I'd gathered back in February. One of those books was a book by Harriet A. Washington, and it's called Medical Apartheid. I found this book and I got it and renewed it from the library and renewed it from the library because I had so many other things ahead of it. This isn't even my only book club, to be honest with you. So I had other stuff to read. But I finally got around to sitting down and enjoying Medical Apartheid. And this is the dark history of medical experimentation on Black Americans from colonial times to the present in a hardcore form. This is about a 500-page book. I read the book in shouldn't say read. I listened to it in audio form, but it was unabridged, so I basically read to the book. So if you join this club, you're going to find almost every book that I want to share with you has an audio component. Even if you route it through your Kindle, Alexa will read the book to you. You have to get accustomed to that monotone Taurus. I'm sorry, excuse me. Alexa, stop. Something you have to remember. Alexa will do that. And so, what I want to make sure of is that no matter what we pick, it's accessible to everyone. There's a way to get to some great books. So, there are no barriers to what we have going on here. The other thing I wanted to share is that I'm hoping that if there are other book lovers in your life, you'll share with them what you find here, and they'll come in and hang out and either have a glass of tea, a glass of punch, a glass of wine, and let's talk about some good books. Now, I'm going to share with you that I go down a set of setting issues and plot and things that I want to touch on as topics. If I were to just openly discuss the book, I would probably ramble on like a crazy person. So I took the time to document what I was thinking and what that information should look like as I share it with everybody here. Excuse me for 1 second, I dropped something. And so as we do this, let's talk about the setting of this book. And according to what I was able to dig up, it is a historical writing about medicine in North America. It covers from medicine's experimentation in slavery through, I want to say this book comes up to the 1970s, maybe even 80s, at the time that this author shares some things with us. And according to what I have here, let's get out of there. The author had a purpose and a viewpoint in writing this, and I wanted to share with you. I found it interesting as I read the synopsis. This is one of the reasons why I chose the book. Seeing the wrongs that medicine traveled to get to modern medicine is a horrific story. Dr. Sims is a renowned physician who cared for women and was highly acclaimed, but in actuality, he performed experiments on slave women in the name of science. The pain, restraint, and horror of what he did is not only breathtaking, it's a Pfizer controlled legacy they do not acknowledge to justify the truth about the past. As you read this book and you look at the horror that was committed in the name of science, you won't often find that when your emotions get involved in reading something like this, it's not to the point of anger. It's information is power. And that's what I found when I was reading this book. As I took this journey, I kept feeling like these answer questions as to why I'm trepidatious about having this procedure, taking this medication, allowing this kind of access. And so this book did an amazing job of telling me about this particular history and how it applies to the way a lot of African Americans view medicine today. There was an enlightenment for me when I look at this book about how little I knew of what I considered wives' tales versus what is actually rooted in what was done to our families, our friends, families, and our communities. And so when I read this book, and I think you'll find too, should you take a chance on this book, it is an amazing look into um, the resilience of not only African Americans as a culture, but how we hold on to not realizing our legacy in medicine, though it plays out in ways that may not necessarily work to our advantage. So, hopefully, reading a book like this will help you better appreciate the journey that helped you feel the way you feel, helped your parents, your elders feel the way that they feel. From the 1700s through the 2000s, I was wrong. I thought it was the 1970s, but 2000s. Racial health divide, mortality rates compared to other races, Black death by medical neglect and dismissal. The history of experimentation that has led to distrust of doctors within the Black community and its growing problem. So it does address and acknowledge that because of the fears that still exist in the history that medicine has traveled, that we still have a long way to go. And I remember there are chapters that specifically talk about medical research and how that's impacted by this history. Medical students, what they're told by senior professionals, as well as the communities that they come from and where we stand in medicine today, and an understanding of what we should be expecting from patients in terms of honesty and relationship. So I thought that was a really interesting take on the distrust that still exists and what we will share and what we won't share. Um, I know of people, I've had conversations where I'll tell my doctor what my doctor needs to know pertaining to the issue that I have, because they don't need to know that this is in my history, or last weekend this is what I was doing, or I consume this particular type of food and I know it's not healthy. We're not going to talk about that. And that kind of mistrust on both sides of medicine, where they're not trusting you with the fact that I look at you knowing that there's this barrier of understanding and appreciation. So it really does a beautiful job of going into that. Um, I I definitely look overall at what I consider to be the standout of a book like this. Why I brought it to us as a book club, and why I think if I were to ask you to read it, I would say it's not a good time, it's a necessary time. It should be a part of your journey in understanding a lot more about yourself if you're African American, and understanding more about medicine if you're not, because medicine travels a road to get to where it is today. It does include human experimentation. So I want to wrap up sharing with you about this book, that I had a final quote that stood out, that sort of rings in my ears for various reasons, because it speaks to things that you kind of know to be true about the journey that medicine has been on, but you don't want to acknowledge, because when you're in need and you're in pain and healthcare is your option, you want to walk into this and walk out of it in the best way possible. But the quote that I picked comes from neurosurgeon Harry Bailey, MD, as he reminisced in the 1960 speech while at Tulane University. This is what the great doctor had to say. It was cheaper to use niggers than cats because they were everywhere, and cheap experimental animals. Next up, because as I promised, I was going to share with you what's coming next. We're going to be reading The Pros and Cons of Vengeance by A.E. Wasp. The teaser I have for you about that book is there are 5 people being blackmailed by a dead guy, which was an amazing place to start a book. So as we close this out and I leave you with what we're going to be reading next, I want to share with you that I did create a rating system. If you can see this over my shoulder, I'm going to back up and grab this and share it with you now. Oh, I can't reach it. I'm going to have to turn around. I'm sorry. It's going to take me turning on my chair, backing up, and turning around. Give me a second. Let's do that. This is what I want to share with you. I hope it doesn't transpose backwards, but if it does, I'll share with you what it says. This is my rating system. And what you have here in my rating system is a great way to look at books, because I've read a book from cover to cover. I don't think it should ever have a rating of I hated it. If I hated it, trust me, I'm not finishing it. So there's the slow clap, which is the lowest rating, number 1. 2, snaps to you, which means, okay. I like your efforts. Then there's three, which is straight up applause because you deserve it. This was a really good read. Then there's four, cheers. This is a wow. I can't wait to read the next thing that you write. And finally, there's the ovation. And I would say for medical apartheid, stand up and give an ovation to learning more about yourself, learning more about your health, and learning more about how you can better participate in making this situation a lot better for everyone involved. Thank you for coming to the book club meeting. Thank you for enjoying your evening with me, your morning with me, however you spent your time. And thank you again for looking forward to our next meeting. I'll see you then.